After wreaking havoc in Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, Piglet is back, more brutal than ever. Once Pooh's savage sidekick, he now takes center stage as the ultimate slasher. At the start of the movie, we see a dangerous prisoner being transferred by 3 security guards. His mouth is covered, and he's chained tightly, indicating how dangerous he is. Suddenly, their vehicle stops in the middle of the jungle, shocking the guards. The female guard asks why they stopped, and the driver says he needs a break for nature's call. As the driver steps out, the female guard asks if the rumors about the prisoner are true. Another guard explains that a doctor named Bickley experimented on him, injecting a chemical that made him stronger instead of killing him. The prisoner later killed the doctor and his family, then murdered several inmates and even prison wardens after being locked up. Shocked, the female guard listens as one of the guards taunts the prisoner, pulling out a knife and threatening to kill him. But suddenly, the prisoner frees himself, grabs the knife, and stabs the guard in the mouth, killing him instantly. He then crushes the guard's face with his foot. Terrified, the female guard tries to shoot but hesitates in fear, allowing the prisoner to strangle her to death. He then escapes, kills the 3rd guard, and heads home. At his house, he opens a chest filled with masks and picks a Piglet mask, signifying he is free and ready to kill again. Months later, 5 friends head to a cabin in the same jungle for a vacation. Kate, one of the friends, suddenly feels sick and insists they shouldn't have come, fearing an urban legend about a killer in the area. But her sister Susie reassures her. Meanwhile, the group jokes about the killer, with one even mocking that they'd cook and eat him if he exists. Meanwhile, the pig-masked killer slaughters a man in his shed. His older brother, Garth, tells him that a group of girls has booked their cabin, and he should pick one for breeding, while the rest will be killed and eaten. Excited, the killer waits for his prey. On the way, the girls meet a stranger who warns them not to go to the cabin, claiming no one ever returns from there. They ignore him and continue. Upon arriving, they're happy and pull out drugs to party. Kate, still uneasy, suddenly sees the pig-masked killer outside but dismisses it as her imagination. They find the cabin locked, but an old man named Hogarth appears, welcoming them and handing over the key. Meanwhile, another group of their friends gets stranded when their car breaks down. Among them is Courtney, who stops to sketch while a couple sneaks into the forest to get intimate. But before they know it, the pig-masked killer appears and brutally slaughters them, dragging their bodies away. All the girls in the cabin were drinking, but Kate was on edge. She feared the urban legend might come true and take their lives. Unable to shake off the fear, she rushed inside to compose herself. Meanwhile, Piglet stood at a distance, silently watching them. Suddenly, Kate heard a noise outside her window. Thinking it might be Piglet, she cautiously pulled back the curtain, only to find a bloodied victim staring back at her. Horrified, she immediately called the police. When the officer arrived, he assured her there was nothing to worry about. The injured man had been out tracking in the woods and accidentally fallen down a hill. Many people had passed through this area before, and whenever someone needed help, they always ended up at the cabin. The girls bought the story, and the officer left without further action. Meanwhile, Courtney finished her drawing, only to realize her sister and her boyfriend were missing. She ventured into the woods to look for them, only to stumble upon her sister's clothes. Panic set in. As she turned, she came face to face with Piglet, who lunged at her. Terrified, she bolted, hiding behind a tree. But as Piglet closed in, she tried to escape, only to step right into a bear trap. Trapped and helpless, she watched in horror as Piglet struck her on the head, knocking her out before taking her hostage. Back at the cabin, the girls were celebrating Kate's birthday, drinking and dancing. Someone suggested they share horror stories, and Jude went first. She told the legend of Pig Person, a boy with a pig-like face who once lived in the area and had an obsessive love for a girl named Katie. It was clearly a dig at Kate, who was always lost in her thoughts. Feeling uncomfortable, Kate left the room. As she walked outside, she ran into the same guy who had warned her before. He insisted they needed to leave, there was a killer on the loose. Just then, her sister Susie appeared and questioned why they should trust him. He said he was just trying to help, then hurried away. Meanwhile, Jude wandered through the forest and found Courtney's sketchbook. Realizing Courtney had been there, she followed the trail and discovered an old shed-like factory. Inside, she found Courtney tied up. Jude rushed to free her, but Courtney panicked, warning her that the killer was nearby. Before they could escape, Piglet entered. Jude hid in the shadows, watching in horror as Piglet forced a hook into Courtney's mouth, tearing it apart and killing her instantly. Judy was terrified. She rushed toward the door, but it was locked. She had no way out. Before she could figure out her next move, Piglet noticed her. He walked up to her, grabbed her by the throat, and with a swift twist, knocked her unconscious. She was now his captive. Meanwhile, Kate told Susie she was overly sensitive and cried over everything. But Susie reassured her that she was her sister and would always take care of her, so there was nothing to worry about. Elsewhere, two girls were relaxing in the jacuzzi when they spotted Hogarth watching them from a distance. It made them feel uncomfortable, so they yelled at him to leave. One of the girls, now in a sour mood, decided to head inside for a shower. But just as she entered her room, Hogarth snuck in, wielding an axe. Without hesitation, he swung it at her, ending her life instantly. Back at the cabin, Kate and Sally returned and asked Alex where her girlfriend was. Alex casually replied that she went upstairs to shower. But when she mentioned that Hogarth had been watching them while they were together, it sent a chill down their spines. Something wasn't right. Kate and Susie decided to head to Hogarth's office. There was a landline phone there. They could call the police. But when they tried to start their car, it wouldn't budge. Someone had tampered with it. With no other option, they chose to walk to the office. Alex, however, decided to go back to the cabin to check on her girlfriend. But as she approached, Hogarth spotted her. He whispered to Piglet that she was coming this way and told him to go outside, distract her, and take her out when the moment was right. When Alex reached the factory, she found Hogarth pretending to be injured. He gasped that there was a killer on the loose who had attacked him. Just as she started to process his words, Piglet appeared from behind and struck her head with a hammer, knocking her out. When Alex woke up, she was tied up inside the shed. Right in front of her was Courtney's severed head. Her heart pounded. She knew her fate was sealed. She tried to escape, but before she could make a move, Piglet arrived. Without hesitation, he swung the hammer at her head, splitting it open. Meanwhile, Kate and Susie finally reached Hogarth's office, only to find that the landline was dead. Suddenly, the same guy who had warned Kate earlier appeared. He told them they could take his car, and he would help them escape. Desperate, they agreed, but just then, Piglet stormed in. Panic set in, and they ran for their lives. Piglet caught up with Kate and grabbed her, ready to kill. But Susie quickly grabbed a fire extinguisher and sprayed it into Piglet's face, blinding him. She pulled Kate away, and they ran. Up ahead, the mysterious guy stood waiting with a shotgun. Kate and Susie grabbed it and aimed it at him. He quickly told them he was only there to help. But the girls thought that maybe he was also involved with the killer, so they told him to raise his hands and kneel. When he did, they also tied his hands. But the boy insisted that he was innocent and had come to help them. Susie then told him to take them to his car, and when they reached it, they took the keys from him. The boy argued that they were making a big mistake, but then Hogarth arrived, trying to stir them up, saying that the boy was actually the killer and they shouldn't trust him. The boy shouted that Hogarth was lying and that he was the one working with the killer. Just then, Piglet arrived, caught the boy, and crushed his skull, killing him. The girls, seeing this, got scared and realized the boy had actually been innocent. They started running, but Piglet began chasing them. Susie, exhausted, couldn't keep up, so she told Kate to run ahead towards the road, hoping she would find help. Kate immediately ran off. When Piglet caught up, Susie told him to kill her, but he beat her unconscious, then took her to his lair and tied her up. Kate, hiding in the dark, managed to sneak past Piglet. Once he was gone, she approached her sister and told her she was there to save her. Susie told her that breaking the chains would be nearly impossible, so the best option was for Kate to go outside and seek help. Kate agreed and left. Soon after, Piglet came in with a large knife, cut Susie's cheek, and then stabbed her to death. Meanwhile, Kate, while running, saw a police officer and felt relieved, sharing everything with him. The officer told her not to worry, as she was safe now, but then he attacked her, saying she should have listened to Piglet. Kate soon passed out. When Kate regained consciousness, she found herself sitting at a dining table. Piglet, Hogarth, and the officer were all there. She saw several body parts in front of her, with candles burning inside a severed leg, and they asked her to blow them out. Hogarth told her it was his birthday, so they had a surprise for her. She would marry Piglet and have his children so he could start a family. Kate told them she would rather die than do that, but they insisted that since Piglet was their brother and had chosen her, they would make sure the marriage happened. Then they gave her a piece of meat, telling her that their family tradition required anyone joining them to eat it. After that, Piglet comes in and starts sniffing her. Hogarth orders him to go outside and get rid of any food that is available in the shed. When Hogarth and Piglet leave, the officer comes to Kate and starts touching her. Kate, pretending to enjoy it, makes him happy. But taking advantage of the opportunity, Kate grabs a knife, stabs him, and kills him. When Hogarth arrives, she also stabs and kills him. After that, she steals the officer's keys and gets in the car to escape. But she notices that Piglet is following her, so she backs up the car and crashes into him, then drives away. However, Piglet is unharmed and still alive. As Kate continues to flee, it gets dark, and she realizes her car has run out of fuel. She leaves the car behind and continues walking. Soon, she sees a house where she might get help, but just as she's about to approach, a man comes out and points a gun at her, demanding to know who she is and why she's there. Before she can explain, Piglet arrives and brutally beats the man to death. Kate, seeing this, gets scared and immediately runs away, getting into the man's car and attempting to drive off. But due to the high speed, the car flips, and there's an accident. Piglet follows her to kill her, but she tricks him, grabs his axe, and strikes him in the neck, severing his head from his body. She throws his head away, killing him. And with that, the movie ends.